Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. It is actually the last warm day that I think we're going to have here for quite a while here in Central Texas, but Nutmeg and I are enjoying the really nice weather while we can, and luckily he doesn't seem to mind too much when it gets cold because he just loves being outside so much. But there's a lot of things happening in the garden right now, so I figured it would be a great time to do a November garden tour. I haven't done one yet this month, and I know I just did a video about my garlic, but there's so many other things that are happening here in the garden, and I really want to share that with all of you because this is what I think is going to be my most successful fall garden yet, and I just want to share it. So we're gonna go ahead and do a tour of the garden. So the first thing that I want to go over in my garden this month is my seedling table. It's got a nice little nutmeg growing out here, but it's gone through a lot of changes, a lot of different plants since I first put this thing up over the summer. I have the shade cloth on here still because I don't really know a reason why I would put a frost cloth out here yet. Everything here is in pots, so I can easily just bring it inside if we're gonna have cooler temperatures for just a night or two. So I don't know, I'm still debating about that, but as you can see, I've got some peppers growing really nicely. I have my first ever determinate tomatoes. This is the bigger one. I just up potted it to this, I think 5 or 6 inch pot. I think 5 inches. So that one is going really well. I did plant both of them at the same time. My other one just got upgraded to a 4-inch pot because it just wasn't growing quite as fast. And since this is just an experiment, I wasn't about to throw this one away or anything. So I'm keeping it even though it's growing a little bit slower. I do have some other fun things to report. My little variegated nasturtium is in fact variegated. When the first couple of leaves came out, they had little to no variegation at all, but over time it has gotten a lot more. This one is supposed to have a deep crimson or maroon colored flower, so I'm really excited to see that eventually. I think with the addition of the last couple leaves, it might be ready to go in the ground, and I definitely want to get it established in the ground before the temperatures get too cold, so that's what we're going to be working on with this one. Other than that, I mostly have brassicas growing in here. I have been up potting them, so they start out in these tiny little containers and then they move up as I see fit. You know, I kind of gauge how big each plant is. So I do have the next size are these 3-inch containers. This is one of my broccoli plants, almost ready to go in the ground. Once they're done in the 3-inch or the 4-inch, meaning that they are well rooted to the bottom, then I kind of deem them ready to go in the ground. So that's just kind of what I'm using as my sort of measurement. Though I do have some things like this Shanghai green choy that are a bit smaller in general. It's known to be a smaller, kind of like baby size bok choy. So this one I might put in the ground sooner. You'll kind of see why as I show you the ones that are already in the ground later, but I kind of just eyeball it for each one. I've been doing a lot of succession sowing. So these are some nasturtium that recently sprouted this week, I guess over the weekend, since it is Monday today, and they're kind of just getting started. I have been doing a bok choy as well. About every few weeks to a month, I plant new seeds of bok choy so that I can have a constant rotation over the winter. It grows really well in the winter here because we have very mild winters here in Texas. And last year I only had 2 plants, so I was only able to harvest leaves at a time. But this way I'm going to be able to harvest whole heads of bok choy to use at once, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I think that's mostly what's going on in here. I do have these dragon fruit cuttings that I saved from my dragon fruit plant that kind of got overtaken by ants, and unfortunately everything else passed away, but it is growing. So I don't know if you can see, but there's little gross little nubby growths coming out of this one, and they are rooting really well into this new container. And I did also save, if I can get it out, I saved some lemongrass when I first pulled up my lemongrass because I wasn't sure quite how cold hardy lemongrass would be. excuse you. Turns out it is cold hardy. It survived a light frost here and is growing back even after I kind of chopped it back. I did save a couple of these just to see what would happen, and they have rooted pretty well and they're actually growing. This is all new growth. So I guess I have more lemongrass now. I didn't need it, but I have more. Moving on to our raised beds, there are a few things going on over here. These were the pepper plants that I decided to pull out of the ground just in case an early frost killed my other pepper plants, and they are growing. They do have this sort of black aphid on them, which I'm trying to get rid of, but it has been raining a lot, so I haven't been able to spray them with water. But they are growing peppers really nicely, so that is something I'm looking forward to. This fish pepper has a few. Some of them have really nice variegation on them, like this one. I think that one is just perfect, honestly. And then I just have a few of the cover crops left in here. This is some sort of kale I'm gathering. It's been wilting a lot with the heat. I did rip up most of the watermelon, so the little stubs are in there. And I think those are some mustard greens and wheatgrass. Same thing over here. This one, the pepper plant in here did die due to the frost, but all of the more established pepper plants were fine. Got more wheatgrass and mustard greens in here as well. And this is the remainder of the peppers in this section of the garden. I, of course, have my milkweed, though I have not had as many monarchs this year, which has made me a little sad, but the little bees enjoy it. There's one just hanging out, doing his little thing, pollinating the milkweed. But the peppers here are also doing okay. We're starting to get some more peppers after I kind of chopped everything back. We got a couple of paprikas growing here and some serranos. So yeah, the peppers are making quite a bit of a comeback. I do believe I have some cayennes over there as well. Marigolds are starting to die back a little bit. Chives are doing all right. And I think just some more peppers over here. Yeah, here's a lemon drop. So I guess I'll have to kind of go through again when we're gonna have another freeze and collect all of the peppers. This is my last pepper plant over here. It's another one of the variegated cayennes, though it got kind of eaten back by a hornworm earlier. Blackberries is just kind of the same old stuff. They're starting to have the leaves turn color for fall and winter. And I do have my pink salvia back there that's blooming, so that's also a nice colorful addition. In the herb bed, I did want to point out something new. So these were my saffron bulbs. I can't remember if they had sprouted in my last video, but I planted them probably in late September, early October, probably right when we got back from the honeymoon in Hawaii. But these sprouted really well. And last year I had planted 4, and when I went to dig them up, I could only find 2. So these were 2. But then over here next to my fennel, I noticed this, which is a stalk of saffron. So I was like, okay, that's one of them. And then I kept looking, and underneath my oregano, there's a bunch of saffron over here. There's a bunch over here and some here. So this has definitely been dividing and growing, which is really cool. And I'm hoping this year I'll get some blooms. I know I need to chop back this oregano, but I really just discovered this a few days ago. So bear with me there. The sorrel's making a nice comeback from the summer because it does not like the heat, but it's doing much better now. And then I have a couple of new herbs that I planted in here. This was a nasturtium that I started from seed. I believe this is the orchid cream one, so I'm really excited for that one. A couple of these older leaves got sunburnt, but all the new growth is used to the full sun. And then I have blue borage over here. They have beautiful little blue flowers that are edible, which is nice. These are 2 plants that I started from seed. And then this curly parsley that I put in probably a few weeks before I put in these. It's fully established now and just growing, doing really well. Next to it, I've got my artichoke and herb bed. So the artichokes are going crazy. They are looking so big, so full. Still no artichokes. It's been over a year now, so I'm not really sure when I can expect them. I know they're supposed to flower in the spring, so if they don't give me artichokes by next spring, I'm gonna be kind of mad, but it is what it is. I've got my lemongrass here. So I had 2 plants. I pulled up this one completely and left this one in the ground. And as you can see, it's growing. So I'm just gonna leave it there for now, see what happens. Underneath these artichoke leaves, I've got my tarragon. Perfect spice for a Thanksgiving turkey, which Thanksgiving is coming up. So I'm definitely gonna be using some of this. I've got a flat leaf parsley over here, as well as a new oregano that I put in. And then here is one of my bronze fennels underneath some more artichoke leaves. But what's really interesting about this is that I let this one bloom and it's giving me, if it'll focus, some fennel seeds. So these are really popular in Italian dishes, Italian sausages, those kinds of things. So I'm gonna go ahead and save these once they're mature and kind of just keep them as a dry spice in my spice rack. Behind it over here, I've got my yellow milkweed being super cute. And then back here, this is one of my basil plants that got hit pretty hard by our first frost. I kind of chopped them back, but left some things on here just to see if it would grow. This one's not doing particularly well, so I might just nix it all together to make room for my other plants back here. I've got my 2 peppers back here. I have my asparagus, which I'll give you a little update on the asparagus berries. They are doing really well. They're finally starting to turn red, but you don't want to pick them when they're red. You have to wait till they like shrivel up and almost dry out. Next to it is my beautiful Swiss chard. I'm really proud of how this was one of my only brassicas to survive the entire summer, and it's making quite a nice comeback now. Not having to start them over again just gives it such a head start, and the leaves are massive. This is going to be so good for salads, for soups, honestly, whatever you want to do, any kind of leafy green thing. Swiss chard is great. It tastes delicious too, and I just love the rainbow of colors that I have here. But my other brassicas that survived were the kale. These got munched a little bit, but I did use some Monterey BT, and that was able to kind of take care of the caterpillars that were munching them. Got a new kale that I put in the ground here, and some herbs and carrots, which obviously the carrots came from over here. My nutmeg is sitting on probably a dozen of them, but it's honestly fine because this entire bed has turned into carrots. This is the last of the beans that I had. It was the only one that survived the frost, and I wanted to see what it would do, but it's done. Like, the season is over for that. So just kind of leaving that be. And I do have a couple of scallions in here. But other than that, this is gonna be carrots until further notice, I guess. This is a lesson to not let your carrots flower. Just don't let them do it, because then you have carrots everywhere until the end of time. I even have some in here with the tomatoes. Here's a couple. I'll just point them out because I have carrots everywhere. So just you'll see them everywhere in the garden, and I don't think I will ever be able to get rid of them, but that's fine. I only have a couple leeks left in here because I've been slowly picking them, but the tomatoes are honestly still going strong. We've got more ripening every single day. You can kind of see in there, just like, it's a mess. This kind of broke because of the weight, but we're still getting lots of tomatoes, so I'm very happy about that. Even over here, my yarrow decided to bloom again for the first time since the spring, so I'm very pleased to see that as well. And then these are my favorite tomato. This is the Canestrino. So like a very Italian kind of sauce tomato, and their skin is so thin when they're like really ripe. It's just a really cool tomato all around. And I have a bunch of them that are sizing up on here, just waiting for them to turn ripe. I haven't had any of these since probably June. They just weren't producing for a while due to the heat, but I've got a lot more of them now. This is another one of the basil in the middle here, but this one's doing a bit better. I think the tomato plant actually protected it. Oh, here's a really nice one here. And somewhere in here there's some cherry tomatoes too. I think they're in the back over there, but yeah, that's this bed. And over here, I think there's a carrot in here too. Yeah, there's a little carrot down here. Got a couple other basil plants. And then these were my slicing tomatoes. They were not as established as the cherry tomatoes, so they did not take well to the frost that we had. But I did harvest one earlier today, and I'm just waiting for them to turn shiny and start to ripen up before I can clear all of this out of here. But I did go ahead and put some of my cabbages in the ground here to give them a head start. That way they can start getting established while it is warm out. They'll get a little bit of shade from these tomatoes and the basil, and then by the time it cools down, I'll be able to clear all of this out, and hopefully we'll get some cabbages. I've never tried growing them before, so I'm very excited. Not much new to report over here, because this was the garlic bed that Nutmeg over there helped me to kind of set up a week or two ago, that was. So nothing to report. Over here, we've got another carrot. The marigolds in this bed look much nicer, and the rosemary. This rosemary is doing so well. I honestly might try to take like a cutting and propagate it, because it's just a very fast growing rosemary, and it just looks better than the original one that I have. This one was a new one this year. But over here is also my little baby Shanghai green choy. And as you can see, they are a bit more established. I planted them in here after they had fully rooted into 3-inch containers, and they have thickened up quite a bit. They've been growing a lot more rapidly since getting into the ground, and that's why I want to get some of the other plants in the ground as soon as possible, because these just look so much better and healthier. I mean, the others look healthy too, but they just look so good once they get in the ground. So that's kind of my reasoning behind that. This was another one of the basil plants. They just don't look their best anymore, but I have them around in case I make any sort of dish that needs basil. And moving on to more brassicas, you would have seen this in my last video as well. When I put in some garlic, we did mulch it over. That was something I forgot to mention with that. We did mulch it all over after. And I've got my collard greens in here, which have been doing very well. I bought these. I did not start them from seed, but I bought them as little 4-inch starts, and they are clearly much bigger than that now. And honestly, maybe I didn't even have to buy collard greens for Thanksgiving, because these are they're edible. They're a good size right now. So very pleased to see the progress on them. And back behind them, I've got these carrots were not from seed. I did purposely plant them, and I'm kind of phasing them out because I have peas that I started. So here I have Snap Daddy. So these are going to be a green snap pea. I've got a few of them on this side, and then on the other side I have the golden sweet pea. So these are also a snap pea, but they are bright yellow, just to add some fun color to the garden. Behind them here, another transitional bed, kind of like this one. I have the watermelon, which has got 2 watermelons left. I'm just waiting on them to ripen. And then I have a bunch of fennel and some radishes. I have a couple of radishes in here, but this one is the biggest. I think I need to go ahead and just pull it to eat it soon. But it was growing very fast. I think I planted them in October, and it's about mid to late November now. So pretty quickly for those radishes. The fennel is also starting to bulb up. You want these to get really big before you eat them, so I'm just gonna let this one take its time. I honestly don't think 4 was enough, just because general rule of thumb, I use them a lot for salads. I use about 1 per salad. That feeds both me and my husband, so this will get 4 salads out of it, which isn't bad, but I think next year I could do more than this. Moving on to the last couple of beds. This bed is one that I'm really proud of right now, because I have my fall tomatoes that I was able to save from the frost, and they are doing so well. This one was so tiny back then, and I have some peas as well. This is the Progress number 9 shelling pea. I am trying to get it to attach to the trellis there, so hopefully it does soon. I planted the peas in between the tomatoes, and I have some leftover soybeans, a couple that survived the frost that are still producing, and then I also planted these kohlrabi. So I have a bunch of purple kohlrabi that have recently sprouted, and they're gonna kind of fill up the rest of the area of this bed once all of the tomatoes and the milkweed and all of that is done. I did want to show you though, just because I'm so proud of my tomatoes, I've got some actually producing here. This is my black strawberry tomato from seed, and then this is Super Sweet 100 that I saved my own seeds from last year, that is producing a couple of little cuties here and is actively flowering. I have been sort of attaching them to the trellis so that they kind of know where to grow. It's kind of an experiment for me, though I know doing it in the fall is a little late. I just wanted to see how well they would grow up this type of trellis versus the string / Florida weave trellis that I did in the summer. So that's it for that bed. And the last one is over here. Here I've got 2 rows of peas, one on either side of the trellis here. And these are the Sugar Magnolia Purple Snap Pea, probably my favorite pea that I grow. And peas are so nice because for the most part, they will actually attach themselves to a trellis. Sometimes I like to help them, but these honestly have attached themselves all on their own. And with them on each side, they're probably going to attach to each other for the most part, which will just help them have some structure as they grow up. I also planted a bunch of root vegetables in here. So the first row is hollow crown parsnip. So they didn't sprout over here, but I've got some here, a couple babies, and I think one in the way back sprouted there. The next row is the French breakfast radish. You can see some of them are starting to thicken up. They do get pretty thirsty, so I have been watering them about every day, every other day. And then I just have a radish assortment that I planted in the next row, followed by 2 rows of beets. So this one, first one is the Chioggia beet. It's an Italian beet, kind of looks like candy canes on the inside, and I had quite a few of those that sprouted. And then the last one is the Golden Boy beet. So this is going to be a yellow beet that is also known for being very sweet. So I'm excited to see what that one will taste like. I've not tried either of these beet varieties before. My husband's not the biggest fan of beets, so it's mostly going to be me eating them, but I don't mind. I think they're a pretty good snack. I did also want to highlight over here my little lemon tree. I have it growing in a pot because it cannot withstand freezing temperatures, but the lemons on here are almost ready. There's still a little bit patches of green here and there. Once they turn fully yellow, I'm gonna go ahead and harvest these, but I have been waiting so long for some lemons. I know they typically ripen in the winter, so this is right on time. When we had our first freeze, I did bring this guy inside, and I'll do that again when we have our next one, which is why having him in a pot is probably the easiest way to go if you're growing citrus anywhere outside of South Texas or Florida or California. But I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to grow lemons while I have such a nice big yard. So here they are. So that is it for us today in our garden tour. As you can see, there are a lot of new things happening, a lot of changes in the garden, but I'm very excited for it. I actually really love fall and winter gardening, maybe because I didn't do it as much as a kid, and then I didn't really have the space for it when I lived in apartments. But now that I have such a big, beautiful garden and I have the space, and honestly, it's not even like that big. We live on less than a 1/4 acre, but it just feels so big and beautiful once you put in all these beds. So even doing it in this kind of space, it makes me want to grow literally everything I can at every possible opportunity. So I'm very proud and excited of the garden right now, and that's why I wanted to share it with you all. And of course, Nutmeg too, he absolutely lives for this garden. He loves hiding under the artichokes as he watches birds and just sitting on top of my plants, but it's totally okay because he always is so cute and he has the best time. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give Nutmeg and I a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next one.